An apple a day keeps the doctor away, but a glass of OJ keeps the adversary at bay. Here's Odd Job. Hey, it's time for a glass of OJ. I'm Odd Job. So, a little bit of definitions. A troll is essentially someone who engages in disingenuous conversation or discussion purely for the sake of causing strife, mischief, outrage, and drama. They love when people share, quote tweet things that they have said that are outrageous and inflammatory, and start trying to call it out. And these are usually very unknown people. And they love it when more and more people dogpile, and they love it when people do that because now they're getting recognition. When it hits the news or, gets even more views, then they love it even more. Because again, they are causing trouble and they love causing trouble. Trolls aren't particularly dangerous to like the whole of society or even, on a macro level, but unless they're fed, they usually don't cause much damage. Usually the damage from trolling comes from calling attention to their antics. And you're basically giving them what they want. It does happen, though, that trolls do target marginalized communities, trans folks, black people, women, and do go after them very hard. Trolls also give courage and energy to people who also believe very strongly in the things that they are disingenuously saying, and can even convince other people to join in the trolling, but being serious about it, which causes more people to have issues. Trolling, in a way, helped cause like the 2016 election debacle, as far as kind of Trump's rise to power, right? It was Russian trolls that were feeding loads of misinformation and trying to get that shared out. And yes, that actually harmed people on a macro level in that case. Don't feed the trolls, and it's a lot harder. But that's a bit of a different classification of troll. That's going from troll to actual misinformation and kind of psyops campaigns. But those core tactics of trolls, when then put to other uses, starts going into charlatanism. Instead of getting satisfaction out of people being outraged, charlatans actually want to get well known. And they like being congratulated for their work. And they like the positive feelings from everything. But they use the exact same tactics as trolls and misinformation peddlers. And when people who see past the veneer essentially say nothing, then these people get even more attention because no one's saying anything in the opposition. They get cued for all kinds of keynotes, for podcasts, for news interviews, or even getting referenced at policy debates. And when they're criticized or questioned, or even when their work is corrected, charlatans will simply dismiss arguments and any kind of feedback for a variety of shifting reasons, such as, you don't have a PhD, so you're not academically qualified to criticize my work. All refutations to my work should be in APA format and published in an academic journal. You're just jealous of my work, and also you just don't understand what I'm doing. I'm the real expert here. Again, those are very trollish, very disingenuous, and, flatly dishonest and posturing statements. They have nothing to do with the work at hand. They have nothing to do to actually prove the statements they're supposedly made in their work that should speak for itself. But yet they use all of these other ad hominem or other types of attacks or pure dismissals in the face of experts' feedback and trying to contribute to an actual discussion. Misinformation, however, can only be countered with correct information. So unlike just ignoring trolls who are just in that troll phase and basically starving them and they move on to something else, misinformation actually has to be countered with correct information. So, or showing how the misinformation is correct, because just because you can't show correct information, sometimes saying I don't know and neither do you really, or you don't have a good reason to know, sometimes that's the correct answer. And to let everyone know the current state of affairs is we don't know, and this information is incorrect, and it must be countered. Why? Because people view silence as consensus. If you have one lone voice out there saying this is how this is and nobody else can be found to counter that, a lot of people will take that as, oh, this must be true because this person says so. Seems like they know what they're doing. They published themselves on ResearchGate. They have some pie charts for 8 points of data. They say some technical phrases. Their conclusions must be true and warranted. That's just how that happens. Silence can result in policies made on bad information. So that's another reason why we should be speaking up. Or actions even by people who are inflamed by the bad information to go harm people based on that. Like we saw with Russian trolls in the election. You know, there's a lot of other types of charlatanry out there that's not an infosec, for instance. You know, we have homeopathy. And there are so many people who truly do believe in homeopathy. There's so many people who do believe in flat eartherism. And, you know, a lot of other just simple bunk. And you have charlatans who they know that they are wrong. They know there's no way this can be true. And yet, they spread that misinformation, they convince people that it is true, and they further spread that information. And people will start taking action on that information. People will rub essential oils on themselves to heal a broken wrist. People will essentially take sugar pills that have no active ingredients in them and will then try to cure their cancer. People will take ivermectin, which is meant for deworming, and try to treat that for COVID. So you've got all kinds of information out there that does get out there, and people do that, and people are harmed by it, and yet you have these folks who are going out there and saying these things held up on pedestals by those communities. Meanwhile, the rest of the scientific community is talking out, and they've saved lives by doing that because people have gone and said, no, you are actually endangering yourself and others. Here's information why you should stop telling people to do this. People have been saved because of correct information. How much worse would it be if homeopathy became medicine? How much worse would it be if creationism was the understanding of the scientific community because nobody in science stood up and then creationism basically took over in education and everything like that? You wouldn't have all of the science that you would really expect to see in today in medicine, because so much of it relies on an understanding of how species adapt over time. So that all of these charlatans do cause trouble, and they love getting the praise and they love getting the attention. And we have definitely charlatans in infosec. And you know what? Sometimes not everybody is suited for speaking up, though. So as much as I'm saying here that you can't be silent, you can't just let these people get around to saying, no one's correcting me, so therefore I must be correct, and there's consensus behind me. Not everybody's for that. Not everyone should go out and do this. Like, if you don't have the energy, there's people who just simply don't have the energy to combat people and who are spreading misinformation. Some people don't do well with public statements. They don't do well with arguments. They can't stay on task. That's fine. Some do better just reaching out individually. For instance, if they see someone sharing a Jordan Peterson statement on LinkedIn, and that person then reaches out to them and says, hey, you just shared something from a homophobic, transphobic person who is totally cool with genocide. Like, you should probably not be sharing information from such a person. or even yes, this video is about Jonathan Scott. And his work very much reflects charlatanry. His work is not academic. He has not posted any academic research. He has not published in any journals. He hasn't submitted to any journals that I'm aware of. He has not published at any academic conferences. He has not published on behalf of any academic institutions. His work is not peer-reviewed. Yes, there's a person's name on the peer review. We know nothing about that person. We kind of think we know who it is, but we don't know. And even further, it wasn't actually peer-reviewed in the academic sense. There was no blind, double-blind peer review committee that this article was sent to then review and give feedback on the work. And his work quite well has been debunked, both this recent work that he's just released as well as various other research efforts that he's published. And we needed to do that. The community needed to step up. There was a lot of PhDs who stood up and reviewed the work very textually, just said this is wrong, this is not formatted correctly, even though you keep saying APA is the format you got to follow. By the way, in technology space, it's not. It's the IEEE is generally the standard people use in academic research, not APA. But yeah, there's been actual academics that have done that, and I will tell you, every single one of those reasons for dismissal that I gave earlier in this session, those are the reasons he's basically blown people off and has called people who are very well experts in this field, in the very field that he is trying to publish on, have said you don't have information that backs this up, and even the information you do have doesn't seem to be correct. It just doesn't seem to be correct. You're mistaken. At best, you are mistaken. We needed to do that because, unfortunately, the types of research he's been engaging in actually do pertain to impact or threaten to impact people's lives through policy. And policymakers have latched on to what he is publishing and are making arguments to take certain policy measures. And if we as a community are silent, then people who engage in charlatanry are the consensus. So, what's your consensus? Has the OJ gone sour? Should we really just ignore the trolls and just let things go on? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this particular issue? I'd be interested to see your comments in the description. Interested to see your comments in this video. Catch me on LinkedIn, catch me on Twitter, and I will see you in the next one.